In other news, Jordan Bianchi, writing for The Athletic, reports that NASCAR is closing in on a deal to bring the Chicago street race back in 2027. I'll put a link to the story down below. He does clarify that no deal has been finalized, but that there is a growing optimism that the race will return.
NASCAR fans are buzzing with electric anticipation as stock cars prepare to thunder through Chicago's urban landscape once again. But beneath this surface excitement lies a brewing controversy that threatens to fracture the sport's very foundation. Recent reports from Athletic Jordan Beyond confirm what insiders have been whispering about. The Chicago street circuit is making its dramatic comeback to the 2027 calendar, and optimism is building to such heights that industry experts are treating this as virtually guaranteed. Though official confirmation remains pending, the ramifications of this decision are staggering in their scope and complexity. The breaking news reveals telling details, particularly the clarification that this won't coincide with July 4th weekend, which speaks volumes about the turbulent issues this event previously generated. This monumental choice raises critical questions about NASCAR's evolving identity, its relationship with devoted fans who've supported the sport through decades of change, and the delicate balance between honoring tradition and pursuing an uncertain but potentially lucrative future.
What does it mean for the future of Chicagoland Speedway? After being off the schedule for 5 or 6 years now, that oval track in Joliet finally got a Cup Series weekend back, coming up here in just a few weeks. But could that excitement prove to be short-lived? Could this be a one-and-done week?
The NASCAR universe finds itself careening toward an internal collision, with the Chicago street race positioned squarely at the epicenter of this intensifying storm. Rumors of this contentious return have created palpable tension among drivers and local residents alike, while the racing community grapples with deep divisions that emerged from the event's polarizing inaugural run. Social media platforms and fan forums are ablaze with heated debates as whispers of potential boycotts grow louder and more concerning with each passing day. This isn't merely about disgruntled spectators skipping a single weekend. It represents a genuine threat to NASCAR's fundamental character and the core values that built this sport from humble beginnings. Critics are questioning whether the relentless pursuit of glamorous new markets is blinding leadership to the traditional foundation that created NASCAR's legendary status. The first Chicago street race serves as a cautionary tale, plagued by logistical disasters, including unprecedented rainfall that transformed sections of track into rushing rivers, coupled with a devastating financial shortfall estimated at $50 million over 3 years. Despite these catastrophic setbacks, NASCAR appears resolute in doubling down on urban racing concepts, raising troubling questions about whether short-term television ratings and momentary excitement justify the long-term risk of alienating the loyal fan base that has remained steadfast for generations, while potentially sacrificing the historic venues that form the sport's backbone.
Is there a world in which both the Chicago street race and Chicagoland Speedway can coexist on an already crowded Cup Series calendar? I'm not so sure. I can't say I'm optimistic. Maybe if they, I think the Chicago street race more than likely.
The question hangs.
Traditional racing enthusiasts face devastating implications as the Chicago street race's potential resurrection threatens the future of beloved oval tracks. Eric, analyzing this developing story, highlights the most heartbreaking consequence: the uncertain fate of Chicagoland Speedway after its long-awaited return to Cup Series competition. Following years of exile from NASCAR's premier division, the Joliet Oval had finally reclaimed its rightful place on the calendar, offering hope to fans who felt forgotten by the sport's modernization efforts. Now that hard-fought victory could become a cruel illusion, snatched away before traditionalists can properly celebrate this homecoming. The segment captures the raw anxiety surrounding Chicagoland's precarious position, illustrating how fragile traditional tracks have become in an era obsessed with novelty and urban spectacle. Every gain in NASCAR's street racing initiative seemingly demands a corresponding sacrifice from the sport's historical foundation, intensifying debates about the organization's true priorities and commitment to its roots. The possibility of heartland venues being abandoned in favor of concrete jungle experiments represents a fundamental betrayal to many longtime supporters.
Chicagoland Speedway's grand return. I mean, that's my POV from where I'm sitting, and I'm scouring NASCAR forums and social media every single day. For all the valid questions and concerns surrounding the street race, you can't deny that race had energy. That first year, 2020.
Chicagoland Speedway's potential one-year-and-done scenario represents more than just schedule manipulation. It symbolizes the systematic erosion of NASCAR's heritage and the values that transform stock car racing into a national phenomenon. This iconic facility embodies decades of tradition and represents the authentic oval racing that built the sport's reputation and passionate following. When discussions turn to displacing such venues for controversial street circuits carrying significant baggage and questionable financial returns, it feels like a direct betrayal to the dedicated fan base that remained loyal through every evolution and challenge NASCAR has faced. These supporters invested their hearts, time, and money into a sport they deeply loved, only to watch as leadership potentially abandons the very elements that created their passion in the first place. The brewing boycott sentiment extends far beyond driver protests or organized demonstrations. It represents fans' growing disconnect from a sport they no longer recognize or identify with emotionally. This transformation isn't merely administrative shuffling or minor calendar adjustments. It's a full-scale identity crisis unfolding in real time with the sport's very soul hanging in the balance. The fundamental question haunting every decision is whether NASCAR can successfully bridge the expanding chasm between its illustrious past and its aggressive push toward urban markets, or if leadership will be forced to choose between these competing visions.
New eyeballs, new audiences, and the on-track product was pretty darn good as well. If this does bump Chicagoland off after just 1 year back, I will be a little disappointed, but I'm not disappointed to see the Chicago street race back. Again, I went the first 2 years.
The coexistence of Chicago street racing and Chicagoland Speedway on the same calendar appears increasingly unlikely, and industry insider skepticism reveals the harsh reality of NASCAR's current predicament. The brutal mathematics of scheduling creates an unforgiving zero-sum game where every addition necessitates a subtraction somewhere else. NASCAR's Cup Series calendar operates at maximum capacity with limited prime weekend slots available for racing, television partners, and sponsor obligations. One track's triumph inevitably becomes another venue's loss, and suggestions that street races might simply replace other temporary events like San Diego offer little comfort to those mourning the potential permanent displacement of beloved ovals that have anchored the sport for generations. This situation forces a fundamental question about NASCAR's strategic priorities, whether leadership has chosen to sacrifice long-term stability in traditional venues for the fleeting excitement of urban experiments that may not deliver sustained success. The tightrope walk between maintaining established relationships and pursuing shiny new markets becomes increasingly precarious with each controversial decision.
They signed up because they really like the Chicago street race, Mexico City, now San Diego. Whether it's actually in writing or not, I think it's clear NASCAR wants to give those new midsummer TV partners a new special marquee event every single year. In 2025, the truth.
NASCAR's precarious balancing act between urban expansion and traditional venues grows more dangerous with every strategic move, as the allure of new metropolitan markets creates direct conflict with the loyalty owed to established facilities that have supported the sport for decades. The fierce competition for calendar positions reflects the existential threat facing tracks like Chicagoland, where survival depends on NASCAR's vision for its future identity. This represents a choice between two dramatically different philosophies: the spectacular downtown racing experience with skyscrapers providing stunning backdrops, versus the pure competition focus of purpose-built ovals designed specifically for racing excellence. The underlying danger isn't physical harm to drivers or spectators, but the irreparable damage to NASCAR's core identity and the unity of its increasingly fractured fan base. Can leadership successfully navigate these turbulent waters without completely losing direction and alienating massive portions of its audience? Or will the relentless pursuit of expansion and growth ultimately create internal division and widespread dissatisfaction that undermines everything NASCAR has built over 7 decades of competition?
Years it last ran, but if it helped them sign Amazon and TNT and land an annual TV contract worth well over $1 billion, then maybe those losses were probably worth it if NASCAR were to assess their bottom line. I had a lot of fun at Chicago the 2 years I went. I think TV.
The financial losses of
Traditional racing advocates face a painful reality that's difficult to accept. While Chicagoland Speedway's return might generate enthusiasm among purist fans, the broader excitement and mainstream energy simply isn't there compared to urban alternatives. Industry observers who closely monitor fan forums, social media discussions, and grassroots sentiment report a noticeable lack of widespread passion for the oval's comeback, contrasting sharply with the undeniable buzz generated by street racing despite its legitimate controversies and logistical nightmares. Even with valid concerns about urban events including financial losses, local disruption, and organizational headaches, the Chicago street race possessed magnetic energy that couldn't be ignored or dismissed. This harsh reality demonstrates how novelty and spectacle, particularly when set against iconic city backdrops, often overshadow quiet tradition in today's entertainment landscape, even among seasoned fans who have followed the sport for years. The comparison highlights NASCAR's difficult position when trying to balance historical respect with contemporary appeal that attracts new viewers and maintains relevance in an increasingly competitive entertainment market.
NASCAR should have at least one of these, call them an outreach event, something new, something bold, something different. San Diego this year, sounds like Chicago could come back next year. I like Chicago, I'm a fan, but I understand everyone views it differently. This is the difficult tightrope NASCAR.
The Chicago street race's magnetic appeal proved undeniable despite facing significant challenges that would have derailed lesser events, including what meteorologists classified as a once-in-a-century rainstorm that created chaos and logistical nightmares. First-hand accounts from attendees described the initial excitement building toward race day, followed by absolute pandemonium as unprecedented weather tested everyone's resolve and preparation. Yet even with these dramatic complications threatening to overshadow the competition itself, the event achieved remarkable television viewership numbers, ranking as the second most watched race of the entire season. These aren't subjective opinions or anecdotal evidence, but concrete data proving the street race's massive outreach potential and ability to capture mainstream attention. The spectacle of stock cars racing through iconic Chicago landmarks with recognizable cityscape providing stunning visual backdrops successfully drew diverse audiences that traditional ovals often struggle to reach in today's fragmented media landscape. This represented a calculated gamble in terms of public perception and financial investment, but the viewership returns validated the risk from a pure audience engagement standpoint, raising important questions about whether ratings should be the primary metric for measuring success, or if the sport's tradition and authentic racing spirit should carry equal weight in strategic decisions.
There are a lot of fans out west, up north, northeast. There are a lot of fans beyond just the southeast. I'm one of them here in Texas. Been here my whole life. So anyway, just my quick reaction to this interesting news. The street race.
The internal conflict experienced by longtime fans perfectly encapsulates NASCAR's current dilemma, as even traditional racing devotees find themselves torn between loyalty and excitement. Honest admissions reveal that the Chicago street race delivered a big stage atmosphere, attracted crucial new audiences, and provided genuinely entertaining on-track competition that exceeded expectations. Despite deep appreciation for traditional venues like Chicagoland Speedway, many fans acknowledge they wouldn't be disappointed to see the street race return, demonstrating the seductive power of urban spectacle even among those who cherish oval racing heritage. This emotional struggle highlights the challenging balance between nostalgia for familiar traditions and the thrill of new experiences that push boundaries and create memorable moments. The broader question becomes whether NASCAR can truly satisfy both demographics and keep everyone engaged, or if the sport must choose between competing visions for its future identity. This internal fanbase conflict represents a microcosm of NASCAR's larger identity crisis, as the Chicago street race offered experiences that traditional tracks cannot match, including downtown hotel accommodations, world-class cultural attractions, and easily accessible entertainment options that create vacation destination appeal rather than remote rural racing experiences. Corporate strategy behind NASCAR's urban expansion becomes crystal clear when examining the business relationships driving these decisions, particularly with major media partners like Amazon and TNT, who were specifically attracted by events like the Chicago street race. These powerful new stakeholders, representing billions in television contract value, explicitly demand marquee special events that justify their massive investments in NASCAR's future. The sport has committed to delivering fresh, spectacular content annually for these media partners, explaining why controversial events like Chicago receive priority despite traditional fan complaints and local opposition. This reveals how modern NASCAR operates, where success isn't measured solely by gate receipts or ticket sales, but by the ability to secure colossal television deals that ensure long-term financial stability. However, this strategic pivot raises concerning questions about the cost to authentic fan experience, and whether races are being designed primarily to appease broadcasters rather than serve dedicated racing enthusiasts who simply want great competition. The financial calculus behind NASCAR's street race commitment becomes staggering when examining the broader business strategy, as the Chicago event's estimated $50 million loss over 3 years would typically represent catastrophic failure for most ventures. However, NASCAR's leadership views these losses as acceptable investments if they help secure television contracts worth well over $1 billion annually, demonstrating cold, calculated business logic that prioritizes long-term revenue streams over short-term profitability. This macroeconomic perspective explains the sport's unwavering commitment to urban events despite ongoing controversies, complaints, and complications from traditional fans and local communities. The strategy represents a calculated risk that banking on metropolitan outreach and new market demographics will generate massive returns through enhanced television rights and sponsorship opportunities that dwarf initial operational losses. This paradigm shift redefines success metrics beyond traditional gate receipts to encompass broader media engagement and viewership numbers, but raises uncomfortable questions about whether prioritizing bottom-line profits over core fan experience represents the right path forward for NASCAR's integrity and authentic racing identity. NASCAR faces an impossible balancing act, trying to serve two seemingly incompatible demands from its diverse fan base, as passionate traditionalists call for more races at legendary short tracks like North Wilkesboro, Bowman Gray, and Rockingham, while simultaneously expanding into urban markets that generate mainstream attention. Leadership must navigate the dangerous territory of potentially pleasing no one while trying to satisfy everyone, as adding beloved historical venues to the finite calendar means removing something else, creating zero-sum decisions that inevitably disappoint some segment of supporters. The fundamental choice between embracing growth through expansion versus focusing exclusively on traditional strongholds presents unique risks, either alienating purist fans through continued modernization or becoming stagnant and irrelevant to younger demographics by avoiding change. Geographic diversity adds another layer of complexity, as fans throughout the West, North, and Northeast deserve access to NASCAR events despite living far from the sport's southeastern birthplace, justifying outreach initiatives like the Chicago Street Race as genuine attempts to serve a broader national fan base rather than purely financial maneuvers designed to generate television revenue. NASCAR's evolution continues unfolding as a testament to relentless growth pursuit and expansion efforts, even when navigating controversial waters filled with division and uncertainty about the sport's ultimate direction. The Chicago Street Race represents more than another calendar edition. It's a bold statement about where leadership envisions the future heading, driven by financial opportunities that could secure long-term stability and genuine desires for broader appeal beyond traditional geographic boundaries. The danger encompasses more than physical risks associated with street circuits, including the very real threat of alienating loyal supporters who sustained NASCAR for generations, the existential crisis facing traditional venues that could permanently disappear from competition, and the ongoing struggle for the sport's fundamental identity and authentic racing soul. As NASCAR attempts its own high-stakes gamble trying to honor storied traditions while racing toward a controversial yet potentially exciting future, the ultimate question remains whether this grand experiment will lead to triumphant vindication or cause the sport to lose its way on the unforgiving streets of change.